Right, so the numbers are pretty much the same, coming out of the new numbers from yesterday, basically, in that, I mean, it looks like they just, said that they're not going to be updating numbers on the weekends anymore. So that will start to happen as of today and tomorrow. So then we won't get numbers till Monday, apparently now. I get which I think is just more evidence that it's not that much of a concern. Like if it was really a concern, I'm pretty sure that they would be working weekends or they could find someone to work weekends. So I think it's just more and more evidence that it's not something we need to be overly worried about. So Alberta, 57 new cases yesterday. We're up to 572 active, which is up by a pretty good amount. But again, hospitalization numbers, it's the same as yesterday. ICU the same, and then the same for death. No new deaths. Again, we're going to be at a 500,000 tests within the next week or so. So that's a very good sign that we're testing a lot of people. Yeah, I mean, people we should be testing a lot of people. I mean, the more tests, the better at this point. So, again, the numbers out of Canada pretty much the same too. I mean, there was a case in one of the Atlantic provinces yesterday that there are a few cases, and they hadn't had a case in the longest time, and everyone's freaking out. But again, it's three cases. Like, why in the world are we getting all panicked about this? Like, and the good thing too is that they found the cases, so those people will be able to self isolate, and the rest of us can go about our daily lives. Again, that's a simple solution to all of this stuff. That the sick and the people who are most at risk stay home and the rest of us go about our daily lives because it isn't even benefiting them either. Like before, it was kind of hard to say that because we thought asymptomatic spread was common, but now we know asymptomatic spread is very rare. So even if you're, let's say you're in your 20s or something and you get it and you're asymptomatic and you go visit your grandparents or your parents, it's still very likely that you spread it. I mean, assuming you're not that you're like hugging and stuff too, I would probably refrain from that. I mean, depends where you live too. If you live in an area where there's like next to no cases, yeah, you don't really have anything to worry about. But if you live in an area where there's a ton of cases, then yeah. And the other thing to mention too is that a lot of the new cases are coming from a town in southern Alberta, I believe, like way, way, way southern Alberta. So again, that's just, I mean, you look at a lot of these cases, like the Edmonton and the Calgary numbers aren't skyrocketing. I mean, look at the numbers in the south. They're the ones that are going up. So again, it's not something we need to be overly worried about. Again, it's kind of same old, but nonetheless, the stuff that everybody's talking about, even in Canada, is the numbers out of the states. And the numbers out of the states are either very bad or actually pretty good, depending on how you look at them. You can easily tell what people are trying to do to you as far as how are they trying to manipulate you by how they report the things happening in the states. If they simply report the fact that the amount of daily new cases has gone way up, and that's all they tell you. They're trying to manipulate you into thinking that that this whole situation's a lot worse than it is. If they throw out the caveat that the daily new deaths are actually very steady, in fact they've trended down, they're actually giving you the whole story because that, by definition, is the whole story. Because what people are actually worried about, at least I think if you have a brain, is dying. I mean, the problem is that for people under the age of 50, or, I had the study yesterday, 45, the death rate is less than the flu. And the majority of those people are going to be asymptomatic, which means, or have very mild symptoms, which means it's not going to be something that's gonna really bother you. Which means that, again, we only need to be worried, at least largely, the vast majority of our worry should be for older people or people that have pre-existing conditions. And again, that's never been what the mainstream media has said either. Again, that just goes to show just how disingenuous they are. That's never been their way of going about things too. I mean, it's the same thing with the schools too. I mean, in Canada, I think we had our first case like a week or so ago of someone under the age of 20 dying. I mean, we have what, probably at least 10,000 cases, and one person's died. Like, that's less than 0.1%. Like, again, so it just goes to show just how disingenuous they are and just how much they're trying to manipulate you. In that the goal here is to manipulate people. I mean, the goal is to see, okay, just how much can we lie to people and get away with it? Because again, if the mainstream media was being honest, this is what their general way of going about things would be, is that this is something we definitely need to be concerned about, that being the whole virus situation. But it's not something we should be panicking about. It's not something we should be locking things down for, or at least society as a whole. It's not something we should be overly worried about. I mean, this is essentially um, the flu that's a little bit more infectious. I mean, in a nutshell. I mean, like I said, the studies have, like I said, the studies have showed that for people under the age of 50, the death rate's pretty much the flu, even less than the flu. Again, when you factor in the older people, it's probably comparable. But again, that's only going off cases that we know of. The problem is that I mean, the problem, I guess, with the whole the death rate is that you look in the states, especially, is that the daily new cases have gone up, but the deaths have gone down. So what that means is that the death rate is even less than we thought it was as of like 2 weeks ago. And 2 weeks ago, we knew that it was comparable to the flu. So again, it's like I said, I've been saying for almost 3 months now. Before this is all said and done, the death rate is probably going to be less than the flu. And not only are we going to realize that we shut things down for no reason, but we shut things down for literally like beyond no reason, because again, like the flu comes every year and no one even that's never even been something that's considered, but yet we did it for this. So again, it doesn't make any sense. So the big news from yesterday and the day before. This is from Dr. David Samadi. Again, he's a very good follow on Twitter if you don't follow him. He basically pushes back against the whole paranoid lockdown, um, force everyone to wear a mask. We're all going to die. Paranoia, tinfoil hat kind of way of going about things. Anyway, he says, I want to ensure that everyone understands the gravity of the situation here. Hydroxychloroquine worked the whole time. The media would literally kill you if it took. It would literally kill you if you took it. Sorry, the media said it would literally. I mean, I don't know if they said that, but the media said that it did do more harm than good. I mean, CBC literally ran a big, massive headline about, I don't know, a couple weeks ago or so, that it does more harm than good, kind of stuff. And the main reason that they did that is because Trump came out and talked about its potential like 2 months ago, or maybe even a little more than 2 months ago. It was very early on in this whole process. And he says, yeah, thousands of people likely died because of this. And I wouldn't say, I'm not 100% sure it's thousands, but it's definitely hundreds. Like, it's definitely hundreds, maybe thousands. Maybe thousands. So yeah, that's the big problem with this kind of stuff, is that because of the mainstream media's lies, people died. And again, this is the main thing. Again, people criticize, people like me and people who are bigger than me, like, independent, more, commentators and stuff. But oh, your views are getting people killed, even though they're not. I mean, they're really not. And even if they are, it's like a handful. Like, and it's not like we're directly responsible for it either. Um, but the mainstream media is a lot more responsible for people dying than we are. I mean, 1,000 people, maybe more, give or take, probably died because they lied. I mean, they had to have lied. There's no way that magically some brand. I mean, you look at CNN too here too. CNN put this out on July 3rd. A surprising new study found that the controversial anti-malarial drug hydroxychloroquine helped virus patients better survive in the hospital. And again, something I haven't mentioned about this too is I've taken this before, for obviously unrelated reasons, and it had like very mild side effects, but it's nothing at all that you have to be worried about. And the fact that they were reporting that it had all these terrible side effects and it did more harm than good, like it's absolutely insane. And again, the main reason that they did it, I mean, I guess the better way of putting it is, the simple solution and the most likely solution is they were all up, against it because Trump was promoting it basically. And there was many doctors that I seen on record say, yeah, I've been giving it to my patients and it's been helping. Again, so the mainstream media was just completely lying, and because of their terrible positions and terrible lies, they got people killed. So don't forget that. This is from Michael Tracy, and he says 60,000 people crammed together in Houston earlier this month, one of the countless mass gatherings across the country that we've been told couldn't possibly have worsened the pandemic. Today, residents of Houston are being begged to stay home under emergency conditions. Again, you have all these idiot politicians saying, "Oh, no 4th of July celebrations for you guys," and in Canada was no Canada Day celebrations for us, but yet they were perfectly fine with literally weeks before mass gatherings. Again, literally within the course of a month, it went from mass gatherings are the worst thing in the world. If you support them, you literally support getting people killed. You're the worst person in the world to within a week or two. Yeah, if you don't support these mass gatherings, at least the BLM ones, you're the worst person in the world and you're a racist KKK member. To now we're back to if you support mass gatherings, you're the worst person in the world. Again, I don't understand how people can have a conscience when they hold positions that are so contradictory and so contradictory to strong held and I mean by strong held, I mean very strong held beliefs they literally held 2 weeks ago. Like, how in the world do you square that up? Like, again, like the people that are talking about this, that, and again, I'm perfectly fine with the protests and with the gatherings. I have been for the whole time, as long as, again, people are taking reasonable precautions and whatnot. But if we're gonna have protests, it's either everybody gets to gather and everybody gets to protest, or nobody does. And this is, again, all the more proof you need that the left does not believe in free speech. I mean, they'll be flat out and tell you oftentimes, but again, if they believed in free speech, they would be for 4th of July rallies. They would have been for the gun rights rallies in Canada. They would have been all there. You need to be big on free speech for people you disagree with for it to be free speech. That's pretty much the definition of it, and the left isn't. So anyway, so this is a story I came across on Twitter, and it says Dorothy Dow was 83, a mom, a grandma. They took her medical alert device, broke her phone, arms, fingers, cut her head and face, burned her alive, left for dead. She used her CPAP water reservoir to douse the flames, but died in agony weeks later. National media was silent. Her life mattered. Now, again, um, this is stuff that's going to be happening if the BLM people continue to get their way. And again, it's not that I always have to throw this out too because it's what they instantly jump to. I'm not anti Black Lives Matter. What I'm anti is anti communism, anti Marxism, anti this far left agenda, which the BLM basically has admitted that the real agenda is communism and Marxism. I mean, the literally one of the founders said that. So again, the I'm all for people not being racist, but I couldn't be more against the Black Lives Matter movement because the movement wants to destroy history and recreate history, basically. I mean, you have in California, they want to repeal the Civil Rights Act, like literally, because, and the reason they want to do that, I mean, they're already doing it to an extent, but they just want to do it more, is they want to be able to hire people and fire people and promote people and do all that garbage based off race. Again, and this is where we're at too. Like I've been pointing it out at nauseum, but again, people just don't seem to get it. I mean, the people watching this probably do, but again, the left has always been the racist through going back 200 years. They were the ones that supported slavery. They were the ones that supported Jim Crow and segregation. They were the ones that were against the Civil Rights Act. And sure enough, who's the racist nowadays? Who's the ones that are promoting, yeah, if you're black, that means that you should be more likely to get hired because of your skin color, and if you're white, you should be punished because of your skin color. Who's the ones that believe that nowadays? Oh, it's the left. Again, so I'm just so tired of this garbage. It's not even funny. It's like I say too, for all the people that are staying silent, and for all the people watching this and know people are staying silent, what happens in your life when there's a big problem that you just flat out ignore and refuse to address because it's going to be hard to address? Well, guess what? It gets worse and the problem doesn't go away. problems don't just magically go away. I mean, if you're super lucky, maybe, but the 1 in 100, but they don't just magically go away. Um, so anyway, like I say, things are going to get worse um, until people speak up. And the problem with that is The problem with that is that people, you'll be accused of being racist. You'll be accused of being all these mean names the left likes to call you. But if you don't speak up, you're gonna end up like this old lady here, or maybe not quite to that extent, but you will suffer because of it if you don't speak up. I mean, I'll put it that way. And you'll suffer more than your the risk of speaking up. Two people say, "Oh, I don't want to lose my job," or all this garbage. Well, you're going to lose your job at some point anyway if these people keep getting their way. So you might as well speak up now while you're younger and you can figure out the rest of your life rather than waiting until it's too late and being 40 and lost your job and you got a mortgage, you got bills to pay, all that kind of stuff. So speak up now. This is from Ezra Levant responding to a Global News. I don't know if it's an article or just a tweet here, but they say escalating far right violence in the states to pose greatest terrorist threat. Experts. Again, this is just such garbage. It's not even funny. For the simple reason that has anybody been killed by a far right person recently? I can't think of any. But all of this property damage and I think it's probably been around 100 people that have been killed because of these far leftists. Again, this is just a ploy, a plot to distract people from the reality that the real political violence that we need to be worried about is on the left. It always has been. I guess I should say that it pretty much always has been. I mean, aside from the Nazis, it literally always has been the left. I mean, communism killed way more people than fascism or the Nazis did in the 20th century. Again, so the far out there political ideologies that we need to be worried about has always been and probably always will be the far left. Again, whenever there's this, a far right guy who does something, the mainstream media completely blows it out of proportion. But Antifa is literally killing people pretty much on a daily basis, and nobody. It's not even news. So again, it's just a complete ploy and a plot to distract people from the reality is that um, we need to be worried about the left, Antifa, and the far left. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. So if you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Check out my PayPal and email. I got linked in the description. Check out my Twitter. Check out my Parlay app. My BitChute. It's very important that you follow and support people that are out there speaking the truth. So check out all those links.